Before we get started, you're going to have a Dragon's Lair DVD or disc image file. I use the 20th anniversary Dragon's Lair DVD. You can either buy it, rent it, borrow it from a friend, or use Google. You have to have the DVD in order for this to work. Now, we're not going to copy the DVD to the Retropie or the Raspberry Pi or anything, but in order for this to work, we need files from the DVD. Hey, what's going on, guys? It's EGA Prime back here again, and today I want to show you how to set up and install the Daphne Emulator on your Raspberry Pi running Retropie. Now, I'm going to be going over Dragon's Lair. Just one game for now, but I have to warn you, this is not for the faint of heart. This is not for the impatient. You need to be patient, and you need to be willing to listen. There are a few steps that we need to follow, and we have to download a bunch of files. So with that said, we're going to move to the Raspberry Pi. If you're not willing to do this, if you're a very impatient person, I would suggest not even worrying about the Daphne Emulator on your Raspberry Pi. Don't even worry about it. But if you want Daphne on your Raspberry Pi and you want to play some awesome old school Dragon's Lair games, come with me over to the Raspberry Pi. We're going to get started. I'm going to show you how to install the emulator on the Raspberry Pi first. Now we're using Retropie, and I'm on Retropie 3.8. Then we're going to have to come back to a computer and download a bunch of stuff. Let's go. Let's get started and install the Daphne Emulator. From the emulation station front end, or Retropie, we want to scroll over and choose Retropie. We're going to go down to the Retropie setup, enter the Retropie setup. From here, we want to scroll to experimental packages. If you're on a PS3 controller, you can use the analog stick to navigate these menus. Select, we'll choose. Now we'll go to the Daphne Emulator. It's the Laserdisc emulator. This is what we need. We're going to install this. It can take a second depending on your internet speed and the speed of your SD card, so be patient. It should finish. Okay, so it took 6.5 minutes to download and install the Daphne Emulator. So there was a point there where I thought it was stuck. Be patient, let it go. It should finish. We're going to back out. And using your controller, you can just go to cancel and press select. I'm going to perform a reboot. I've rebooted the Raspberry Pi, and if we scroll over, we still don't see the Daphne Emulator. That's because we do not have the ROM or the correct files in the folder. Now, before we go back to the computer, we want to grab our IP address. Now, this is because we are going to transfer our files that we need to the Raspberry Pi over network. So you can just go into the Retropie menu and show IP, take a picture of the screen, write the IP address down. Just remember that, just in case you can't get in there with the / Retropie. I'm going to move back to the computer now. We still have some time to go. Like I said at the beginning, this is not for the faint of heart. You need to be patient. It's now time to get all the files required to run Daphne on our Raspberry Pi. You will need a Dragon's Lair DVD. Now, this is the Dragon's Lair 20th anniversary. Borrow it from a friend, rent it, get it from your public library, buy it, or Google is your friend. Dragon's Lair 20th anniversary DVD. We want to go to Google and we want to download the Daphne Emulator for PC. You can do that by going to www.daphneemu.com, and I will leave a link in the description. Click on download. And I'm going to download the zip for Windows. This works for Mac OS, Linux also. But I'm on a Windows machine, so I'm going to download the Windows version. And it comes in a compressed file. Now here is the Daphne Emulator that I downloaded. It is a zipped archive. Right click. I'm going to extract it to its own folder. Move the zip out of the way. Now from here, we're going to open up the Daphne Emulator folder that we extracted. We're going to launch Daphne Loader. I'm just going to update. So, here's where it's going to take a little while. The Daphne Loader allows us to download most of the files that we need to run Dragon's Lair or any other game located here in this list. So I'm doing Dragon's Lair. I'm going to click on Dragon's Lair, press start. Now it tells me that I am going to need a legitimate DVD or a real DVD. These are the DVDs that you can use. I am using the Dragon's Lair DVD video 20th anniversary. It is 7.5 gigabytes, I believe. This comes with a bunch of different games on it, so this is really the one to get, the 20th anniversary. I'm going to click OK. Daphne will now try to get the audio-video files required. Press OK. What this is going to do is it's going to download most of the files that we need. Now this is totally legit. You will get this slowdown problem detected. This can take 30 minutes to download depending on your internet speed and depending on how they are seeding it. If you have 1 gigabyte or 1 gigabit download speed from Google Fiber, it doesn't matter. If they're not seeding it at that speed, you're not going to download it at that speed. So be patient. This is going to work. Status receiving. It's 878 megabytes. Now in this little section here, you can see how fast it's downloading. Last night when I downloaded this, I hit 4 to 5 megabytes and it still took me 30 minutes to download it. So be patient. I'm going to fast forward this because this can take a while. So it didn't take as long as I thought it would. Last night I did try it and it took about 30 minutes. So I guess it downloads it and decompresses it. But here we are now. We need to insert our DVD. Now what this is going to do is when we insert our DVD, it's going to extract the correct video files for us. And it's going to create a frame file. Click on OK. It's not going to find my DVD. What I need to do is open up my Dragon's Lair 20th anniversary disk image file. Right click and I'm going to mount. I'm on Windows 10. If you're on Windows 7, you can use Magic iOS. You just need to download it. You can mount it. But I'm going to mount it with Windows 10. So now, as you can see, Dragon's Lair is over here and it's inserted just like a DVD would be inside of a drive. We'll open the Daphne Loader back up. And I will navigate to where I have the disk install, which is right here. It's going to validate the video TS files. So this could take a little bit of time to validate all the files inside of the disk image. So it's done now. You can start Dragon's Lair and run it from a Windows PC right now. But what we want to do is make this playable on the Retropie, on our Raspberry Pi. So I'm just going to minimize the Daphne Loader. And I'm going to close this folder here because this was my DVD drive. Want to open up the Daphne 1.0. This contains your Daphne Loader that we launched and downloaded all those files. I'm going to snap it to the side here. Now after you've Finish the download and install from the DVD. Inside of the VLDP_DL folder, we will have 4 games. We are focusing on lair. Open up the lair folder, and inside of here, we're going to need 3 files. We're going to need the lair. Now this is a M2V file. We need the lair.ogg, and we need the lair text. If they end in BF, do not use them. If they end in MD5, do not use them. These are checksums, and these are not compatible. The BFs are not compatible with the Daphne emulator on the Raspberry Pi. Create a folder on your desktop named lair.daphne. Now, if you would like to use another game, you need to make this, let's say, ace.daphne, lair2.daphne, whatever game you're using. You will have to go through the same steps with the Daphne loader to download and install the correct files. So if you want any other game like Dragon's Lair 2 or something like that, you'll have to go through those steps again. But we are on Dragon's Lair. So in the VLDP_DL under lair, we are going to take these files, the lair, lair.ogg, and the lair text, copy them. Now in the folder you just created, the lair.daphne, we want to paste those. We're going to close these folders. We're now going to access the SD card on the Raspberry Pi. From the quick search bar, you can open up a new file explorer, type in / retropie, all capital, press enter. If you do not see the BIOS configs, ROMs, or splash screens, you are not in the correct directory for the Raspberry Pi. If the / retropie does not work for you, if you get an error connecting, type in / whatever your IP address was. And I showed you where the IP address was. It's under Retropie. Scroll down to show IP on the Raspberry Pi. So type that in and press enter. I am using the Retropie command. You have your BIOS, configs, ROMs, and splash screens. We're going to open up our ROMs folder. We're going to scroll down to the Daphne folder. Now this was created when we installed Daphne. Open the Daphne. Inside of the Daphne folder, there is a ROMs folder. I'm going to snap this to this side. So we are inside of the Raspberry Pi's SD card now. Open your Daphne 1.1 folder that contains the Daphne loader. Go to ROMs, and we want to take lair and just lair and drag it over to our ROMs folder inside of the Daphne folder. Back up once on the Retropie. We can close out of the Daphne folder now. And inside of Daphne ROMs, we'll have our lair ROM now. Open Daphne and drag your lair.daphne. Now this contains your lair.ogg, and your lair text. We're going to take this file and place it right here. The file is done transferring, or the folder is done transferring, excuse me, because we created the lair.daphne folder. Now to recap, when you're connected to your Retropie over network, ROMs, Daphne. Inside of the ROMs folder, you should have your lair ROM. And inside of the Daphne folder, you should have a lair.daphne. With the lair, this is a M2V video file, your lair.ogg, and your lair text. This is the frame file that we're going to be using. We're going to head over to the Raspberry Pi now, and we're going to play some Dragon's Lair. There's just a couple more steps, not much more, but you're almost ready to play Dragon's Lair on your Raspberry Pi running Retropie. Now when you come back to your Raspberry Pi, you're going to want to reboot one time. So press Start, Quit, Restart Emulation Station. Now what this does is it tells the Daphne Emulator that we have installed the correct files. Open your Daphne Emulator, and inside you should see your lair ROM. We're going to start the lair ROM. Now this can take up to 30 seconds to start. Press any key to parse your video files. Now what this does is it just goes through the video files and puts them in the correct order. I'm going to press A on my controller. Video parsing is going to finish. This can take a little bit of time. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correct. Parsing. And just puts them in order when you parse the files. I'm going to press Escape on my keyboard to exit.
You control the actions of a daring adventurer finding his way through the castle of a...
Now we are ready to play Lair. Now if this black screen appears, be patient. If you were able to parse your files, then it should start. You shouldn't have any problems. It can take 30 seconds for that black screen. So I'm using the keyboard, and I'm going to explain a few key commands here, but I will leave a link to the GitHub Retropie Daphne Emulator, and you can program your controls if you'd like. It depends on the controller. You need to find your key maps, and it is pretty complicated. It's hard to go over all the controllers. So I'm using the keyboard. On the keyboard, 5 and 6 will be your insert coin buttons. So I just press 6, and you should hear it beep a little bit. 1 and 2 on your keyboard are 1 or 2 players. Space is your sword button, and the arrow keys are your movement keys. So I'm going to press 1. Now the weird thing is, this is the US version, and I cannot get the first scene where the drawbridge scene, and I suck at this game. So we are now playing Dragon's Lair. Oh man. And see, I gotta hit my... Woo! I finally made one. I never played this in the arcade. I always saw it, and I never played it. So, like, I have no clue what's going on here. I'm trying my hardest here. I just died. I'm gonna insert another coin, and we're gonna try this again. 5 or 6 is insert coin, and I'll press 1 to start the game. So the drawbridge scene is skipped in the US version that I have. For some reason, I've read online that it just didn't work. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Oh! And I almost made it. Told you. You just really got to get used to playing this. Oh, I made it! Electrocuted. I mean, it is a real... This is hard. Wow. I keep getting stuck, stabbed, drowned, murdered. So this is the first time I'm really ever playing this game, and I'm not sure why. It wasn't appealing to me when I was younger. I did see it in the arcade. Nice. Okay. So you see the flash there. If you've never played it, I mean, it can be pretty hard. And this part here, I have no clue what I need to do. I always hit the rock, and I get stuck and drowned. Oh my gosh. I'm gonna make it. Oh, I didn't make it. It's just all about timing. Oh man. See, he flashes and I hit the button. It's just, I cannot. Always. Wow. Yeah, I am horrible at this. Escape will bring you back out into Emulation Station. Now that's it, guys. You have Lair, or Dragon's Lair, up and running on your Raspberry Pi, running Retropie. Now I know this was a pretty long tutorial, but I hope it helped you out. This was really the only way I could find to make this work in the Daphne Emulator. There are tons of ports of this game. Every console had a port of Dragon's Lair. But to play it in the Daphne Emulator itself is pretty cool. Thanks for watching. If this helped you out at all, if you could help me out and hit that thumbs up button, subscribe. I have a lot more coming, and if you have any questions or comments or requests, leave them in the comments below, or you can send me a private message. And like always, thanks for watching.